Hello and a big warm welcome to this presentation from the Urban Penguin. My name is Andrew Mallett, and in today's presentation we're going to be looking at System D socket units. Now, you may have come across socket units already. If you've been working with Enterprise Linux, you may well have come across the cockpit.socket. So a method where System D can open up the required port and hand it across to the service when required. But it's not just Cockpit that has these sockets. We'll see that the standard HTTPD package also has a socket. So we'll get to see the very basic functionality of a socket. But on top of that, we'll add network-based functionality to standard command line programs such as our Fortune program. We'll be able to link it to the network by making use of a socket. Now come on, that seems fun, doesn't it? Let's find our command line. Hey, and look at this, our glorious Pixel Playground. A Pixel Playground that we're going to find made up of our Rocky Linux Enterprise Server 9. As always, we can begin our presentations by taking a look at hostname CTL, so we can see that we are in fact using Rocky Linux 9.3. Now, we're going to be going through taking a look at how we can use our System D socket units. Now, to begin though, we're going to install a little bit of extra software. Not very much, but as we go through, we can see that we can put in the EPEL repository, so our extra products for Enterprise Linux. This is going to give me the quote of the day or Fortune program. We're going to have Vim for my text editor. That's just my preferred editor. And we're going to put in netcat. And this is going to allow me to connect to services. So we can go through and see what's being installed, and we can just go ahead and accept this. Our normal stuff, we should know this by now, our -y to accept. With that done and dusted, we're getting part way through. But we're going to go through now and install some additional software. Part of that software, the Fortune mod, is going to be coming from our EPEL repository. So I'm going to now put my Fortune mod. We can use that to create our own service based on the Fortune program. And we'll also put in our HTTP daemon. This is just to illustrate that there are many standard packages that come with System D socket units. So we can allow this to run through and install. And of course, having installed Fortune mod, we're going to get access to the Fortune program where we can drive ourselves crazy with these silly little trivial quotes. But we'll see later how we can connect this to the network. But before we do that, let's get a good understanding of our socket units. And we're going to begin by taking a look at listing out the contents of the HTTPD.socket unit. Now, the idea of a socket unit is that System D can open up the listening port, in this case port 80, and then pass it across to the HTTP daemon service when somebody connects to it. In this way, the web server is only started when we need it. But when we go through and take a look at systemctl and enabling, we don't enable or start the service. We start the socket. We want System D to open up port 80. When a user then connects to port 80, System D will start up the service when required. So this way, we don't have to worry about all of our services starting on system boot. When we look then at our listening TCP ports, we can see that port 80 is being held open by System D process ID 1. So we're not taking the extra resources of the web server running at the moment. Maybe sometime after boot, somebody then connects to the web server. When we connect to the web server page is delivered as normal, and the web server will now be started. So as I go through now and look at my listening ports, when we look at port 80, we can see now that it's being held open by the HTTP daemon, as well as System D still holding it open. So this is really good. We can actually save a little bit of time during the boot process and save a little bit of resource only opening our services when they are required. But not only that, we can use socket units to connect to non-network based services, such as Fortune. Here we can see then locally we can get our quote of the day, but maybe we're not going to be able to access it across our network. This is not a service and it's not listening on any ports. But we do have a quote of the day port, port 17 on TCP. So if we then go through and actually start creating our units, so we're going to go through and take a look at etc systemd and system, and we'll create our Fortune at dot service. We need to use the at symbol here. Using the at symbol means that this is a template, so we can create instances of this service. Every time somebody connects to it, we'll be creating an instance of the service. We then need to populate our template service unit, and we can go through and put our normal unit. We're probably going to throw in a description. We can also put in some documentation if we wanted to, but we'll keep this relatively simple. So we can go through and put our description, Fortune, quotes. The big element here, of course, is going to be our service unit, describing the service itself. And we're going to have exec start that does most of the work. And this is going to be /USR, /bin, /Fortune. So that's the path through to our command line program. Our standard output, we don't want it to write to the screen. So we're going to redirect our output through to the socket, so this can be viewed by our network clients. We can specify the user account that it would run as. Normally it would run as root. We can restrict it to run as a dynamic user. We don't need access to the user's home directory, so we can go through and protect home equals true. And we can go through and specify that we can keep this user private. We don't need any information shown about this user. And this is all that we need to set within our service unit. We don't need the install element, which would allow us to auto start our service. We want this service to be triggered by users connecting to the socket. So for that, then, we're going to up arrow key and change it to fortune.socket. This becomes probably a little bit more simple. As we then go through and hit insert, we can go through and put our normal unit and description. It doesn't really matter what we put in here, but obviously the more descriptive we can be, the easier it is going to be to understand. And of course, the hard work is going to be done in our socket section. As we then start going through, we can put on listen stream. So this is specifying that it's a TCP port, stream being TCP, and we can use TCP port 17, which is the quote of the day port. Continuing through, we're adding in accept equals yes. This is really because the underlying program has no mechanism to actually accept incoming connections. So we have to accept the connection, and we're going to then pass connections through to an instance of the service. Remember, the service was called Fortune at .service. So it's a template. The install section is going to allow us to enable our socket, so it will start on system boot if it's enabled, and we're putting then wanted by, and we can put then our socket.target. Now at this stage we are pretty much ready to go, but we do need to tell systemd that we've changed some of the back-end files, so we can go through and use our sudo systemctl daemon reload. So now systemd knows about our files, and we can then run ahead and enable our socket. So this is going to be enable minus minus now, so it starts, and then our fortune dot socket. With this now loaded and running, we're going to be able to see that we are listening on port 17. Again, this is a TCP port, so we can use pretty much the same command as we used before. As we then go through and take a look, we can see, look, yes, we are listening on port 17, and of course it's being held open by systemd process ID 1. Remember, port 17, if we take off the -n, we're able to see the port names rather than the port numbers, and we can see there that it's the quote of the day port that is being held open. Now, with that done, we're going to be able to use netcat. With netcat, we can specify what port we want to connect to. So I can go to localhost and then port 17, and we get then our message. Just use Control and C to end this. It will still be running, so I can go back and connect again. And obviously we are connecting to the local host, but this would also be available over the network if we wanted to connect from another remote client. But look at this, we've got our quote of the day service up and running through a systemd socket.
All that is left to say is thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then you are probably sadder than I first thought. For more of this drivel, please subscribe, like and comment to @TheUrbanPenguin.